episode of the Therapy is a Joke podcast. I'm joined by my buddy Jake.
Hello.
Hi there. We're gonna be interviewing one James Draper today. How are we doing, James?
All right, doing good.
Good. I'm glad we could get you guys out of the house on this cold, blistery day and talk about jokes.
Yeah. It's pretty cold out there.
Yeah.
At least the snow stopped.
Yeah. Well, about time. It's been snowing pretty straight through for the last
week? 3 days. They had 3 days straight. It's been pretty much straight. It's been snowing.
Yeah.
I've been inside for the past 3 days, so I didn't even notice.
Jake's been with cold, with illness, so I'm glad we could get you out of the house and that your stomach business is solid.
I thought I was going to die there for a few days.
Well, I'm glad you did.
I did not.
I was going to start dropping off crates of orange juice, but we didn't have to do that. But okay, so let's dive into it. James, how long have you been doing stand-up?
This March 26th will be 10 years since I first hit the stage.
Yeah.
Wow, you're old, dude.
Yeah. Well, and I've been doing it a while.
That's it.
Yeah.
Well, what got you into stand-up? Was it just like, it's in your stomach and made you get into it, or did somebody actually push you on the stage like, you should try this?
No, I've always, my earliest memory, I've wanted to be involved in comedy.
Yeah.
And it was never specific. I didn't say, my passion is, writing or stand-up or improv or, acting. Even if I'm pointing a camera, I've always wanted to be involved in comedy. Like I said, from my earliest memory. Growing up in the Quad Cities, you never had any sort of opportunity. There's nothing. If you wanted to do any kind of comedy, you have to go to Chicago.
Yeah.
You have to go somewhere largely populated like that. You can't just become a comedian in the Quad Cities. And if you did, nobody gives a shit.
Right.
It's true today, still. You make it big in the Quad Cities, no one's going to give a shit. But there is comedy in the Quad Cities.
Absolutely.
And I didn't find out that there was even an opportunity until I was 32.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've been wanting to do it since I'm freaking 4 years old. And my earliest passion to make people laugh, and it wasn't until 32 that I found out.
Because by that time, all the Penguins comedy clubs were out of this area, weren't they?
No, at that time, and that's why I started, where I was working, I knew there was a couple guys in there, and one of the guys sent a little email to a couple of us. He says, "Hey, I'm thinking about doing the open mic night this weekend or whatever this week. What do you guys think of this?" And he sent a paragraph.
Yeah.
And I really didn't read much after he said open mic night.
There's the small sausage there.
Thank you.
I got you guys a few plates there. And then you want the pasta?
Right, yeah.
Alright, no problem. And is there anything else I can get for anybody? Any Parmesan red pepper? Any more silverware?
No, thank you.
Yeah, Parmesan red pepper would be good
Okay.
for me.
Alright. Anything for anybody else?
No,
I'll be right
thank
back.
you.
Thank you.
Yeah, dropped off. Yeah.
Where was I?
There wasn't much in the area.
When I started, there wasn't anything but Penguins, and it was the last Wednesday of the month, so it was once a month, and so that's what I did. It was the only outlet to do it. I showed up in February, but when I got there, I was a little late. The mic had started. I sat in the back and just kind of watched. The guy hosting it at the time, Jimmy Peterson, actually he came up to me just as it was ending, and he's like, "Hey, did you want to go on or something?" And it's like, "No, I kind of wanted to check it out." He goes, I told him, I said, "Well, I was going to, but these other guys signed up, and I showed up late. I'll come on time next month and try it out." He's like, "Okay." And I didn't need someone to twist my arm to tell me to go on.
Right.
I wanted to. But the cool thing was going and watching. I got to see people doing it and bombing. And that was so encouraging to me.
Yeah.
because these people were coming every month religiously and trying and bombing. And I kept telling myself that night I walk away and I remember leaving out that door from the showroom out towards the car, and I remember thinking to myself, I can get one laugh. Right. I saw 3 people in a row, silent fucking room. I know one laugh I can get, and that's all I need. And the next month I came back, and it went really, really well, and I've been absolutely hooked ever since then.
Now, in that room, you said Jim Peterson. Were there any other Quad City constants there from now, or?
When I started, my first couple of months, let's see, that first night, it was just Jimmy and a couple others, locals. Ones that you might see once in a while. JoJo, I think JoJo now was there. Did you guys
who was
ever?
The only Quad City comedian, I think, to make it to America's Got Talent.
Right, to be videotaped on that.
The most famous Quad City comedian.
Yes, for good reason. God bless her. She was one of the 3 that I saw that very first night.
Yeah.
Chris Schlichting was there. He had started a few years before I did, and he was well known. He was a big name at the time when I started.
Yeah.
And that was another thing. Like my second or third time, and Chris was there, and he was one that all the other comics are looking up to, and even the host is like, this guy's deal.
Right.
And the first time I perform in front of someone who's kind of a big deal, he comes up to me afterwards, kind of excited, and talking to me about, hey, with this one joke, I got an idea. He's like, your set was great, and I thought this might be something or whatever.
Yeah.
And that, sometimes as an artist, when you get criticized, you're like, well, there's a method to my madness. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it's someone that has more experience. It's someone you look up to, someone other people look up to. So when he says something, you go, number one, okay, I need to take that into my writing and maybe try it again another time. And the other thing that you do is you go, hey, I made a big enough impact that this guy who seems fairly important was excited to talk to me about it.
Right.
So again, that was something. Yeah, and that was something that was encouraging, and something that I try and do. I mean, I've always thought very little of myself, but having been around for a while and people knowing my name, when I do see someone new who I get excited about, I definitely approach them and let them know, hey, that was a really good set, and I want you to keep coming back and keep at it, and because no matter how good you are, it takes a long time to doing it.
Absolutely.
Before you're halfway decent at it.
That is a good point that I wish more people would talk about, is that I've seen lots of people do really well their first time, and they usually it gives them a little bit of false confidence, and so they kind of do what they always do, which is come out every once in a while, and they may have some natural talent, but it just takes it takes years and years to kind of get to any point where you feel like you can go in front of any crowd and do well,
Yeah.
That my goal, at least early on, I read somewhere, always be ready. If someone says, hey, I need you to do 15, you can go, okay. In the crowd, hey, I need you to do half an hour, you got it. At any given moment. Yeah. And right now, I feel like I can do that. Like if someone were to call me up right now, it's 5:09. Someone were to say, hey, at 6:30, I need you to come and host this show. I need you to come and feature for whoever. I can go, okay, I can go and do that time.
Now, would it be derogatory to say that you're a utility player in that? That you could be thrown in anywhere at any time?
Not necessarily anywhere. Like I'm not a clean comic, and that's something that I guess I should work on. And at the same time, I kind of don't want to. I've played corporate gigs, And I know that that's where the money is.
Yeah.
I know that. And I was telling this to somebody earlier today. There are comics out there richer than the most famous comic that you've never heard of because he's out there just doing corporate shows.
Right.
And he's getting, $5,000-$6,000 a weekend. That's what he's doing. Cruise ships, all this thing. Dude's making bank because he can do that. And that's one of the things that I love about Schlipping is that guy can play any fucking room.
Yeah.
Hey, he can go to a church and in 2 hours later kill at a strip club too. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter. That's that what do you call it? The ability, the agility, if you will, with the. And I'm kind of stuck in one thing. Not necessarily one thing, but I know I can't do a corporate gig. I can't do a church show.
Right.
And at the same time, I don't want to.
Yeah.
Regardless of the money, that doesn't sound like fun to me. That sounds like.
Let me ask you a quick question because I remember, as a comedian, when you first start out, you're trying to find your voice. You're trying to figure out what kind of stuff that you want to talk about. Mm-hmm. And I remember a comedian from Iowa City, Mike Lucas, was like, you should always just write what you like. Don't write for a crowd. Don't write for an audience. Don't write what you think your mother would like. Mm-hmm. Write what you like, and then the jokes will come. Do you think there's any merit? Do you think that's
I absolutely believe that's 100% true. And I think that honestly should be the rule as a comedian.
Yeah.
Just if you're going to do comedy, if something pops in your head, you think it's funny, write it down, make it into a joke, and tell it.
Right.
If you're so worried about what this audience is going to like, or maybe this comedian isn't going to think I'm hard-hitting enough, or all this and that, then you're writing for someone else.
Yeah,
and you're going to run into a lot more problems. It's like telling a lie. Yeah, you might get away with it that one time.
Right.
But someone else is going to come back to you and be like, hey, what about blank lie? And you got to fucking figure out another lie and another lie. And then all of a sudden, you're doing someone else's act.
Yeah. Right. Exactly.
I absolutely, what I've always done, and even we were talking a little bit ago, where you worry about, oh man, did somebody else write this joke? Or did somebody else cover this kind of thing? And either there's two things you can do. You can look it up and keep searching the web and find 4 other comics who did a joke on this and say, well, I can't do that now. Or you can go out there and tell the joke, and then when 2 people say, hey, I've heard that joke before, you go, all right, throw that joke away. I can't tell that joke.
Sure.
And I think that's a more organic way to go about it.
Right.
Where you, again, telling what you think is funny, something that pops in your head and makes you go, oh, okay, if I word it like this, because it's not, you don't just sit down to a blank page and make comedy.
Yeah.
Right.
You work with what you have. Yeah. And, whether it's something that popped in your head or maybe it's, the day you had. You were just sitting here, talking about your kids and the blanket fight and everything. And, you word that right. Boom, you've got a 10-minute set in a church because you're just talking about the kids and everything.
Right.
And you can manipulate that. If you word it just right, you got another 5-minute set in a bar. You know what I mean?
Right. Or I can take that set to a bar, and then somebody like Todd Wilhite can come up to me and say, you're always making jokes about your kids. Stop it.
And you can go, well, too bad. At least I don't tell jokes about my dead parents.
I think I told him one time, sorry, Todd, I can take my kids back if you'd like. He's like, please stop.
It reminds me, you were just talking about not worrying about what an audience thinks. I did a show for Chris, who we were just talking about, and the entire room, which was packed, it was at the Renwick Mansion. The show.
Oh yeah.
So, me and Todd and Andrew King are looking at all these people filing in, and they're all professionals and older ladies, and I'm like, they're not going to like my jokes about my addiction and all this other stuff. And Andrew went up first, and he did a great job, and then I come up, and I just did my jokes. I just said, whatever happens, I'm just going to do my jokes. And I had one of the best sets I've ever had, and they loved it, And that's, do what you like. Don't worry about what everybody else likes. And,
I can't tell you how many times you see a crowd come in, and you go, well, I'm going to get